everyone. Thank you for making the time today to come to our Fireside Chat. Now, this Fireside Chat is the last one we have in this internship. And today we are lucky to have J-Kid here. So it's our pleasure to have him, and we hope that we all take away something from today. Now, before we introduce J-Kid, my name is Isabella, and I'll be leading this chat along with Sharon Lee. I'm a junior at the High School of Performing and Visual Arts here in Houston, Texas.
And I'm a junior at Elkins High School in Houston, Texas.
Okay, so a little bit about J-Kid. So Jay attended Princeton University and held executive positions in a wide range of industries. He is now an angel investor and strategic advisor.
Sure. Thanks so much, Isabella and Sharon. I appreciate a chance to be here today. When Rebecca asked me to come speak at this, it forced me to kind of think back over a fairly long journey of my career, because I'm basically retired now and in the third phase of my career. But it's interesting to look back, because I look back at some of the first jobs I ever had. I ran a Christmas wreath business when I was in 7th grade, and then worked various kind of basic jobs as summer jobs, and every one of them taught me something. So I really enjoyed every business experience I ever got to have. So after several summer jobs, I then decided, in 1980, when I graduated from college, startups was less of an option for people coming out of college. There just weren't as many. So I decided to join a big company, and I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast and worked for Hewlett-Packard for about 10 years. And really got to know the tech industry at that time. And at that time, tech was new. It was really just a growing and starting industry. Did that for about 10 years, and then decided if I didn't leave a big company after 10 years, I never would. And I felt like I would be trapped. So I decided I would go to a smaller company. So I went to what was known as Silicon Graphics at the time, in computer workstations, and much smaller company, about 2,000 people. And then did that for a few years, and then worked at two much smaller companies, one about 50 people and one about 30 people. And got to apply a lot of what I'd learned working at HP for a while. I also got a sense of what it was like to be in a smaller company and a startup. And along the way, I interviewed with a couple of startups and decided whether I wanted to go that route or not. And then in around 2000, I decided it was time to do something different. I can get into that story later. But so I joined Brocade and was there for 5 years. Brocade, another tech company, very different industry, did networking products for computer storage, and then went on to NetApp. And in those two companies, I really got a chance to lead, both lead within the company, lead larger organizations, and lead in the industry. And some amazing little tricks I found about when you come from the right company, the right logo, some of the things you say people assume is true, which is sometimes kind of amusing. But I had a good time in those roles, learned a lot about culture, a lot about what it takes to lead people, to make big organizations work effectively. And then I retired from that in 2015 and spent 3 years in venture capital. And I was very curious about the whole venture industry, what it took to make a small company start. And what I really learned is just how hard it was to keep small companies from failing. It's a very high mortality rate in startups. And so how do you detect what are the right attributes of a young founder or a young company, and it gives them the best chance of success? And then by the time I was 2018, my youngest was graduated from college, my middle daughter was getting married. I decided I want complete control of my time. And so I've jumped out, and I've been doing strategic advising, executive coaching, and also a fair amount of angel investing with founders. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm by no means done, but it's been probably a little different than some of the other people on these fireside chats, because I haven't started a company, and I have some good opinions around what it takes to make small companies work, from the small companies I worked in and my experience in venture. So I'm happy to share that as we go through this conversation.
Chat. And so the question is, if you could choose any person in the world, past or present, who would you choose to be your boss and mentor and why? You can totally choose yourself or a person who doesn't even exist in real life. For example, SpongeBob if you would like.
Yeah, there's so many facets to this question. So I thought about you. You gave me a clue as what the question was about 5 minutes ago. So I've thought about it a little bit. And who are the great leaders, which I would want to learn from? You can think of political figures. You can think of just scientific leaders, inventors, but also then thinking about who are the most curious people. And because I think what's driven me through my career is I've been insatiably curious and really tried to learn and apply and just try to make a difference. So I think I would actually pick Ben Franklin. A person from American history who was very curious, did a range of different things, and was also a great leader of people, mostly based on his ideas rather than necessarily charisma or power. It was what he said, not how he said it, that really seemed to matter. So I think Ben Franklin would be the guy I'd like to have as a mentor. In my opinion, no one has all the answers, and people who think they have all the answers really don't know what the questions are. So it's critical to be able to listen and to apply the wisdom of others to your situation. So that was always my first filter. I wouldn't work with people who just weren't unable to listen. Now, the second thing I found was critical is just very high level of ownership and accountability. People who sought to blame others or blame the situation for problems are doomed to failure. You have to constantly look at, I own this, I have to fix it, or I can take credit for it because I made it happen, me and the team. And then just have a bias for action. People who analyze too much don't get anything done, but people who don't analyze at all get the wrong things done. But just have a bias. When you're not sure what to do something and learn from it and then improve from there. Those are kind of the attributes I look at. There's a million other things when I talk to a founder to try to figure out whether they can lead a team, whether they can build a team, whether they really understand their market. But from a personal attribute standpoint, I think those are probably the big three.
Thank you so much for that insight. Something that we thought was super interesting was that you majored in computer science in college, but worked more in the business field. So what made you pursue a career in business rather than in computer science?
Yeah, it's interesting. I viewed that I had a career that constantly crossed the line between technology and business. I started as a technical trainer and then moved to become a product manager, which was more on the business side. And then I ran engineering teams for a couple of years and then moved again into product management. And then I ran engineering teams again. And as an executive, I was a general manager, then I was a chief marketing officer, and then I was a chief technology officer. So what I found enjoyable through my career was the intersection of innovative technologies and customer problems, real customer problems, and being able to apply the technology to solve the real problem and then understand the problem well enough to develop the right technologies. And that yin and yang of technology and customer problems, that was the arc of my career. That's what I always spent my time on the line between those two. So I don't think of myself as having a business career or a technical career. I think I had a career in business and technology.
Wow, that's definitely interesting. And as like a candidate for an upcoming college application, that's always interesting to hear. So I know a lot of students like question or wonder if I study one major, like, am I stuck with this major, or how important is your major in your future?
The major it's the starting point. Pick a major that you'd like to spend time with, because your first job will likely be related to that major. And assuming you pick a major that there's jobs related to. or else, if you're going to go on to grad school and things, it's a little different. But your first work will probably be related to that major. But the most important thing in school is to learn how to learn. And people say this all the time, but it is just so true. What you major in may not be what you spend your life doing. It'll be the thing that opens a door that lets you learn more about business or about people or about an industry or about politics or about whatever. And that will then allow you to follow your interest based on the skills you learned when you pursued that major and the skills you'll learn as you work. My daughter went to law school, but found that working in human resources was far more interesting and fulfilling for her. So she chose not to be a lawyer. And that's perfectly fine. You have to enjoy your work. Don't let the major you chose trap you into a certain career path.
To know, in your opinion, what were the most outstanding part or parts of your application that got you accepted into Princeton?
So I got accepted to Princeton a long time ago, and things are a little different now. And I used to do alumni recruiting for Princeton. So let me answer the question a little bit differently. So what I did in my application, at the time I applied, there was a personal statement. After 3 or 4 essays you had to write, it was a personal statement for Princeton. And I was out of things to write about. So I summed up my entire application in, I think it was 8 limericks. So I was an engineering major who on his application wrote poetry. And I think that stood out as a little unusual in the application process. So, and that kind of, filled my life of always kind of going back and forth across business, humanities, history, and technology. So, but I also have learned since then that when I applied, what the university was looking for was well-rounded students. And so engineering manager and poetry is well-rounded. Since then, I think the application has shifted to more have a well-rounded student body. So they're looking for people who are deeply expert in certain subjects. So I encourage you to refine and emphasize the expertise you have. What makes you great? Have you started a company? Have you cured a disease? Have you gotten a paper published? Things like that. Emphasize the things that make you extraordinary in your field. But don't hide the diversity of your interests. Let the university know you care about other things as well.